it's Dakshin and you're watching my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. And today we're going to be talking about Robert Julius Oppenheimer, who's regarded by everyone in the world as one of the greatest scientific minds in human history. He's nicknamed the father of the atomic bomb because he was instrumental in developing the world's first nuclear weapons. So we're going to be looking at his life and how he went on from a celebrated man to being labeled as a spy from the Soviet Union. So let's get started without further ado. So Robert Julius Oppenheimer was born on April 22nd, 1904 in New York, and his parents were from Germany. He was born in a German Jewish household. So he was born in an immigrant family, as I mentioned. So we all know that immigrants love science. So Robert Oppenheimer was interested in science ever since he was a kid. At the age of 9, he could fluently read, write, and speak Greek and Latin, two very complicated languages for someone of that age. And at the age of 12, he was so interested in physics that he could understand complex physics theories and solve complex physics problems. At the age of 12, he was also invited to deliver a speech at the New York Council of Mineralogy. So mineralogy is a study of minerals. So Oppenheimer was pretty good in mineralogy too. So he was a child prodigy, a child genius, or whatever you call it. And Oppenheimer was so immersed in physics that his brother Frank Oppenheimer stated that Robert loved physics so much that he didn't like mingling with other people. He would prefer being surrounded by physics books and being surrounded by theories rather than people. Oppenheimer didn't have a lot of interest in politics up until the year of 1936. So by the year of 1936, Adolf Hitler, who was the dictator of Germany, he was oppressing the Jews. So Jews were the people of Oppenheimer's religion. So Oppenheimer was so hurt due to Hitler's activities that he started developing a hatred for Hitler, and he started expressing his political views, and he started showing interest in politics. Now, in 1925, he completed his bachelor's degree from Harvard at the age of 21. And in 1927, he got his PhD from the University of Göttingen in Germany. So this is how his scientific career kind of started. In 1939, Albert Einstein, who was a German actually, but he was a Jew. So he fled Germany and he came to the United States as a refugee. And he penned down a letter to Franklin D. Roosevelt along with another scientist called Leo Szilard. So these two scientists, they penned down a letter to Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was the president of the United States at that time, where they informed him about the German nuclear weapons program. So the Nazis were working on developing an atomic bomb, which is a lethal weapon and that could destroy the world. So they advised the president to start working on the atomic bomb before and complete it before the Nazis could launch one. So this is how the Manhattan Project started. And in 1942, 13th August 1942, Oppenheimer was included in the Manhattan Project. And in 1943, the head of the Manhattan Project, whose name was General Leslie Groves, he made Oppenheimer the director of the entire project. So he had a team of scientists working under him. So there was a desert in Los Alamos, New Mexico. So New Mexico is a state in the United States of America. And in a desert in Los Alamos, they started a camp to start the research where they worked for 3 years. So around 6 lakh people were housed in this camp. It was like a mini town, and it housed the families of the scientists and the workers and everyone who were kind of associated with this project. And in 1945, the test was issued. So the test was scheduled around 4:30 in the morning, but due to heavy rain, it was postponed to 5:30 a.m. So an hour later. This test was nicknamed the Trinity, and once the test was completed, Oppenheimer was completely shocked and surprised by the results, because Oppenheimer expected around 0.5 kilotons of TNT due to this blast, but actually the test results were 50 times more devastating. So 15 to 20 kilotons of TNT were released, And after this, Oppenheimer uttered the famous words from Bhagavad Gita, "Now I'm become death, the destroyer of worlds." So Oppenheimer was incredibly interested in Eastern languages and scriptures. So that's why he quoted this. So Oppenheimer finally realized that this weapon could end humanity once and for all. So he kind of started getting depressed because he felt that he had blood on his hands, right? So there was a point of time where Oppenheimer, initially he was really pleased about the entire discovery, but as time went on and he saw the cruelty and the casualties that were faced by the people due to this weapon, he kind of grew guilty, and he started preaching against and advocating against the use of such weapons. So on 6th August 1945, so the test took place on 16th July 1945, and on 6th August 1945, the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima in Japan. It was nicknamed Little Boy. So due to this blast, around 70,000 people were instantly killed and millions were injured or they lost their homes. And even today, it's believed that kids born in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they are affected by the radiations. So after seeing all this, Oppenheimer was completely displeased. So initially he was, as I said, in public meetings and forums, he expressed a sort of delight, but as time went on, he started regretting his action. So actually this bomb was planned for Germany, but since Germany pulled out and Japan was not ready to surrender, the United States had two options. Either they had to launch a full-scale invasion of Japan, which was not feasible because it would result in heavy casualties on both sides. So they wanted to end the war once and for all. But after the first bomb was dropped, Japan made it clear that they will not surrender. So 3 days later, on August 9th, another bomb was dropped named Fat Man, which was even more devastating than a little boy. And Japan finally surrendered once and for all. So all this is how Oppenheimer's life started and how he went into the Manhattan Project. Now, another important part of Oppenheimer's life starts after the Manhattan Project. So there was a man called Louis Strauss, who was a philanthropist, and he was the head of the Atomic Energy Commission of the United States for 2 terms. Okay, he led the AEC for 2 terms. And Oppenheimer had once publicly insulted him in front of the Congress. So Strauss had a lot of vengeance, and he started fabricating a story which would point out Oppenheimer as a spy from the Soviet Union. Now let's understand how this happened. So actually there was a man who was working under Oppenheimer in the Manhattan Project. His name was Edward Teller. He's known as the father of the hydrogen bomb. So the bomb which Oppenheimer made was based on fusion, but Edward Teller had, fission, but Edward Teller had a bomb which could work on fusion, right? So that bomb was 400 times more devastating than the atomic bomb. And Oppenheimer didn't want the project to get diverted, so he didn't allow Teller to develop this bomb, and he asked him to focus on the atomic bomb instead. So once the war was complete, once the bomb was dropped, Oppenheimer, he started to oppose the use of nuclear weapons and the production of nuclear weapons. So Edward Teller was about to develop a hydrogen bomb, and the US authorities had approved it, but Oppenheimer was continuously asking the authorities not to do something like that because the hydrogen bomb would be even more devastating. So as this went on, in 1953, November 7, 1953, a man named William Borden, who was the head of the Congress Joint Committee for Atomic Energy. So he launched an investigation. He tried to trigger an investigation by informing the FBI that he believed, quote, more probably than not, that Oppenheimer is a spy from the Soviet Union. So actually, because of this entire Hiroshima-Nagasaki incident, countries all around the world, they wanted nuclear weapons for themselves. And the Soviet Union, they started entering into an armaments race, and they wanted to manufacture more nuclear weapons. So the World War ended, and due to this atomic weapon, a Cold War started between the United States and the Soviet Union. And since I mentioned earlier that Oppenheimer had communist ideas, just because he supported few communist ideas, he was painted as a man who supported communism entirely and who was a spy who worked for the Soviet Union, which is the present-day Russia and some other territories as well. So the investigation went on, and people were questioning his authenticity, and his security clearance was revoked. So a security clearance is like an access to the government's classified documents and secrets. And Oppenheimer was given the security clearance by the government of the United States because he held a huge position in the government, but due to the communist claims, his security clearance was cancelled. And Louis Strauss informed on December 21, 1953, he informed Oppenheimer that he had two choices. Either he could resign or he could fight this in a hearing, and Oppenheimer chose the hearing. So the hearing was carried out in 1954 behind closed doors, and at the end of the hearing, during the hearing, a lot of people close to Oppenheimer testified against him. Even Leslie Groves, the man who made him the director, he testified against Oppenheimer, and but Oppenheimer got through it all, and he was proven innocent, but due to his communist involvement, his security clearance was revoked. In 2022, the United States government authorities and some officials, they themselves said that this whole trial was a mistake and it was based on false evidences, and they all declared Oppenheimer as a true patriot. Now, a famous incident from Oppenheimer's life is that after the atomic bomb was launched, President Harry Truman, who succeeded Franklin D. Roosevelt, he invited Oppenheimer to the White House, and he wanted to congratulate him, but Oppenheimer said that, quote, "I have blood in my hands." So Oppenheimer's words they were mocked by the president, and he called him a crybaby. He literally called him a crybaby. So this is how Oppenheimer's life went on, and at the age of 63, he died due to throat cancer in 1967, and he passed away. So he never won a Nobel Prize because he worked for the military, and during those times there was a certain provision which prohibited the people who work for the military, the scientists who work for the military, from getting the Nobel Prize. That's the only reason he didn't get the Nobel Prize, or else he would have gotten one. So hope you all liked the video, and if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any other updates from my channel. So thank you so much for watching again, and see you all.